in love with the world. I love exploring, I love the freedom of it, I love the simplicity of it.
It's probably a strange question, but in terms of percentage-wise, how much will you get there through actual rowing, and how much will nature bring you there?
You wouldn't get there from rowing alone, like not a hope. So you need a big help from Mother Nature. Yeah, that's.
So tell me, Damian, you're rowing 4,800 kilometres, close to 5,000 kilometres across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say, "Are you mad in the head?" They mightn't say it to your face, but that's what they're thinking.
It's a common consensus.
Yeah, I'd say so. Or have you ever considered going for medical attention or anything like that? But why would you do such an act? What's the motivation?
I can't think of anything better to do.
Yeah, that's one answer. There's probably a bit more to it than that.
There is. Like I'm driven by these. Like my internal compass inside me tells me that these are experiences that I have to try and take on and see what I get from them, you know, take all the rewards that you get from these really powerful challenges that show you different corners of yourself that you don't often get to see.
And I suppose I just quickly read up a little bit about it, and it's close to 5,000 kilometres across the Atlantic on your own. So no backup support, no sails, no engine, you're simply rowing, and depending on the weather. So in terms of weather, what's the worst thing you can expect?
Storms, and we're expected to get at least one. They always get one on a crossing, maybe more. There's not much you can do in a storm. You just have to hunker down and wait it out.
Yeah.
So basically we climb in the cabin there behind you, and we put out a thing called the para anchor, which is like a parachute that holds about 2 tons of water out the front of the boat and kind of keeps us in place, or we get driven back a little bit depending on the ferocity of the winds, but just that we don't lose all that kind of valuable hard-earned ground that we've rowed so hard to get. So
and the boat's about 20 foot, and you're on your own, this 20-foot boat in the middle of a storm. Like, how high a waves is going to be coming at you?
There's been talk of 40-50 foot swells in the past.
I'm here on the boat today, and the idea of a 50-foot wave coming towards me it's a bit scary. What happens if she turns over?
Yeah, no, there's
can that happen?
She can turn over, yeah. She can turn over quite easily in that sort of weather. She self-rights straight away.
I'm just reading that less people have achieved this than have climbed Mount Everest or gone into outer space. So quite a unique one.
Yeah, you're in a very, very small percentage of the world's population, and then you're even in a smaller percentage when you mark that down into solo rowers. Like, I think 445 people have crossed the Atlantic. But that's teams, all sorts of teams. But I actually think the loneliest parts would probably be the first kind of, after the buzz of starting wears off, you know, maybe day 4, 5, 6, up until you kind of get into a routine of just rowing, eating and sleeping. You know, those are the kind of 3. Life is going to be very simple on board, but listen, without a doubt there's going to be very low parts, and on the opposite side of the scale, you know, huge euphoric parts. You know, that does attract me, to see how I react when, you know, everything is going against me. I think that's where you learn a lot about yourself, and you know, when you get to the other side, you get a lot of reward when you've gone through those really kind of low, hard times, you know. So so.
And there's a charity aspect to this as well. You're raising money for 3 different charities. I know one of them is Madra, which we're familiar with here in Galway. It's a great local charity for animals. And the other 2 are?
Doctors Without Borders. So they're an organisation that give emergency medical aid in war zones, in natural disasters, humanitarian crises. And the third one is an interesting story. I was travelling in Rwanda about 2 years ago, and I met a guy called Blaise Pascal through a website called Couchsurfing, you know, which lets you stay with local guys when you're traveling. And we kept in contact when I came back from off my travels, and he was telling me his stories, or his life story about a bit of a tragic life story that his mum left the family of three. He's one of three boys. His mum left when he was very young, about 3 or 4 years old, and then his dad tragically died about 4 years later, leaving the three boys orphaned and to survive. Another tragedy then in the 1994, the Rwandan genocide. His two brothers, older brothers, went out one day to work. Now they were only about 14 or 15 at the stage, and they never came home, leaving Blaise as a 9-year-old living on the street, orphaned. So he spent a couple of years just surviving, scrounging, you know. Yeah, of Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. A couple of years he survived just out of, I suppose, pure intuition and survival skills, and he met an old widower, as he calls her, and she took him in. She built his trust. She took him in, put him back into school, and he excelled in school. Graduated with a cert at 18, a cert in languages, and he went to Uganda, working in a school in Uganda, and then a couple of years later, on his, I think, 28th birthday or something, he came back to Kigali and set up Strong Roots Foundation, which is the name of the charity we're supporting. And that's a school for orphaned and street children like he was, you know, to stop kids falling into the same kind of fate as he had. So yeah, he's doing great work out there, and we've currently they rent a building, school building, you know, puts a huge drain on the resources. There's about 50 kids in the school, and we're hoping to build a new school. If we can raise enough funds from the row to, yeah, it'd be something pretty cool to come out of this whole experience, you know.
How can people help out with these charities?
Yeah, so if they go to DamianBrowne.com, they'll see we have an initiative called the 100 Club. So for 100 of their hard-earned euros, they can get their name or their kid's name or the whole family's names on the boat, and you know, they join me in the crossing, and part of the experience, maybe get their kids engaged in you know, something to follow for the kids or their schoolmates, and who knows, maybe even inspired to live a little bit more adventurously in the future.
Well, it's a great example to their children, so put their child's name on the boat here and make a small donation, and their children can follow you as you go on your 5,000 journey right across the Atlantic and help build a school in Uganda.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a tracker on the boat, so you know, you can track me over your Weetabix every morning, see where I am in
while the central heating's on, relax. How is that coming along? You're raising much money? Or?
Fantastic, yeah, we've raised about 55 or 6,000 now.
56,000?
Yeah, 56,000. So we're absolutely over the moon, as you can imagine. Yeah. And yeah, just push on now, and sure, just keep trying to raise a bit more and just make a little bit of a difference in some people's lives around the world and at home.
Well, I suppose, Damian, as a sponsor, STEELTECH Sheds, we're delighted to sponsor you. I heard you first on the radio, and then I was fortunate to meet you at a game of rugby. You used to play a lot of rugby, I believe, one time. So when I got chatting to you, we were delighted to come on board and sponsor you. So we certainly wish you the best of luck, and we'll be following with close interest. And hopefully we'll have a chat with you when you get back.